Terry, thank you as always. Joining me again for 2022. Big meeting today of the Reserve Bank. Rates on hold, sure. They made a decision to end the $350 billion stimulus program. This is the bond buying program. What does it all mean?
Well, let's start with that, Peter. They basically cleared the decks for the next move, which will be an interest rate rise. But a tiny sliver of good news for the Prime Minister, they've more or less guaranteed they won't consider a rate rise through the election campaign. There obviously wasn't one today. There won't be one at the next meeting in in March. And the election campaign, as we know, is going to be called early in April. And they pretty much said we won't raise rates until we see inflation figures later this year. The next lot of inflation figures come at the end of April, which will be for the March quarter, but they've sort of preloaded a commitment not to be too worried if those inflation numbers are again high. So a tiny bit of good news for the Prime Minister and obviously for home loan borrowers who have not had to suffer a rate hike since 2010. More than half the people out there with home loans have never seen a rate hike and therefore payments going up. But clearly rates are going to go up later in the year. I mean, that's been made very clear, I think, by the way the economic data is coming out.
I tell you, not only have they not seen any increase, I reckon a good proportion of the population have never seen double digits on their interest rates. Talk to me about inflation, been low for very long, low for a long time in this country. It's on the move. We know in the US it's at 40-year highs. Concern, Terry?
Well, there's a big question, Peter, whether the Reserve Bank is going to be caught napping in this respect. It's clearly not in the situation the US Fed is, because inflation in the US is over 7%. And wages are rising fast in the US. That's not happening in Australia. As you indicated, wages have been very, very low. And the big question in relation to what happens to wages is going to be driven by immigration. Will we see those backpackers, those students who fill all the part-time jobs, and indeed visa holders come in large numbers over the next few months and basically provide supply into the labour market, which is good news in one sense for businesses, but not great news if you're trying to get a wage rise, if you're a worker. More competition for those jobs. So the whole question of when and how quickly rate rises come is a function of how quickly we get wage rises faster than we've seen over the last, pretty much the last near decade.
I might be just living in hope here, but all the pandemic largesse mean we're on our way to approach $1 trillion in debt as Australians. I'm hoping that we're going to see a focus on debt reduction management as an election issue, but am I kidding myself?
I think you're going to be disappointed, Peter. I mean, clearly this is going to be another election budget. This will be the third election in a row, 2016, 2019, and again this year, when they effectively launched the election campaign off the budget. And so you're not going to see any sort of emphasis on getting the budget deficit under control. The Treasurer is going to be glad that the numbers are smaller than had been predicted at the very height of the pandemic, when we were looking down the barrel at getting to that $1 trillion a lot faster of debt. But we're still going to get there, unfortunately, and I don't see any sort of reduction in the budget deficit numbers, certainly in the 2020s and probably not in the 2030s either.
Well, we'll do our best, you and I, to keep the focus on debt and deficit, but, well, we live in hope. Terry McCrann, as always, thank you for your time.